Hi, it's the Burnt Out Mama, and we're going to talk about children, family, and mental health. I am going to give a trigger warning. My son, my firstborn, is diagnosed ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder, extreme, and ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder, as well as being a type 1 diabetic. While I am going to focus on ADHD, I will touch base on my son's other issues. Should you feel triggered by watching this video, I am sorry. I will leave a link for No CD, which I have recently signed up with to learn in more depth about obsessive compulsive disorder and the triggers and flare ups that make living with OCD, especially extreme OCD, a lot harder than we think. I always basically said to myself, I get it, but I don't feel it. But when my son left home for about 6 months when he turned 18, I started to really get it. I didn't really research or anything. I didn't feel a need to look into more things. I just sat there with my thoughts, my own thoughts, and I said, I get it. I get how I triggered him at times, how harsh I was on him, and I am so very, very grateful he still loves me. Yeah, I know you could say your children are always going to love you, but I felt lucky that mine did. So, with that being said, we're going to talk about ADHD. My oldest son was diagnosed with ADHD at 6 years old. Have you ever thought to yourself, is my child just hyper? Or is there something wrong? Why are they bouncing off the walls? Why does my child have to be called 3 times and still not pay attention until you actually tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I'm talking to you? Well, you're not alone in that. I had to go through my son bouncing off the walls at 6 years old, not listening to me, impulse control of wanting to be closer than what was really a comfortable level, not with family, but with friends. And it's something that comes along with being ADHD. It's impulse control. And for a while, he was on medication for that. But today I'm going to talk about how the parent has to cope. I know you could say, well, what about the person dealing with ADHD? While I am very compassionate, I personally do not have ADHD. But in my life, I have dealt with my nephew having ADHD, my husband being ADHD, as well as my son being ADHD. So therefore, I've got a pretty good understanding from the mom and wife perspective, the aunt perspective. And I'm just going to say, flat out, there is nothing we can do to fully understand ADHD without having ADHD, with the exception that once you've known more than one person with ADHD, you tend to see their mind is everywhere. It is like their mind is bouncing off the walls inside their head, and there's no real true solver without some form of help, rather that be medication or therapy, or a little of both. But we can't understand it in the perspective of someone going through ADHD, living with ADHD. We can just learn how to help them cope, how to help them succeed, and how to help them through the things that we know and can see are something to do with mental illness. Now, you could say ADHD is not mental illness. It's just your child acting out. They just want all kinds of attention. And for the longest time, people thought that. They really did. But it's not for attention. It is a mental disorder that actually affects a person's thinking and day-to-day life. So, with that being said, you need to actually look deeper beyond what maybe seems like the issue. If they are hyperactive, okay, there are things that you can probably look into doing for the hyperactive child. More activity, or per se, seeing what sports or entertainment they could get into that would be a outlet for them. An outlet like that could help the hyperactive child change from hyperactive to functioning in a way that is good for parent and child. Now, while we're talking about this, we currently, my husband and I, think that our 6-year-old youngest child may be ADHD as well. We have not had him tested yet. We're waiting because he just entered school this year and he entered school late. So realistically, his teachers cannot see enough of a pattern, I'm sure, and therefore it's just a waiting game at this point. Now, while we're talking about triggers, I brought that up because my son's extreme OCD, that would be my oldest, my 19-year-old, is the worst nightmare that it could possibly be. Especially for him, yes. There's no mother on the planet that would wish this upon their child. There's no father on the planet that would say, yes, please give me a child with a mental disorder that does not allow them to function properly for a day, a week, a month, or even a minute or two of a day. If something triggers this. Triggers. What are triggers? Well, I'm going to tell you just from what little research I have started and from my own experience of my son that triggers could be anything from feeling the need to wash your hands in ritualization, which is how my son started, or it could be getting to a point that you're washing your clothes on your body at the kitchen sink because you feel unclean and your skin is crawling and you do not know what to do because you are in a state of anxiety, a state of your mind rushing through all sorts of issues and things that not every person can understand. My son also got to a point that one of his triggers became condiments. We're talking mustard and mayo here, peeps. We're talking he doesn't really like, but he will tolerate ketchup. Why, oh, why? We don't know why. He doesn't quite know why. But it makes him feel like his skin is crawling and that he cannot cope. He is 19 years old, and a lot of his world is what's going to come at me next. He's got so much on his plate. And just with triggers, his day can go from happy laughing son to curled up in a ball on the floor asking God why. I'm not going to cry just simply because I am doing this for self-help, self-awareness, and for people to understand people a little better that have mental illness. So the next time you see someone that completely freaks out, or as we call it, flares up, or melts down, maybe think to yourself, I'm pretty sure there's a reason. There's probably someone out there that knows the reason. I don't. So therefore, I am going to be understanding, and I'm going to make it my mission to either be polite enough to be kind to this person today, or to simply just mind my business because too many people judge and they're hurtful and mean and they laugh and they mock that which they do not understand. That's why I'm here to try to help some people understand. So, if I've given you a little insight into OCD or ADHD, then I'm doing what I intended to do. Now, where it comes back to ADHD, where that circles back around, I have seen my son go from bouncing off the walls, his teacher telling us he would not sit still for story time, he was crawling off elsewhere, to him touching or tapping someone on the shoulder, even if they didn't want that behavior. And by touching, I just mean on the back or tap like they're playing hide and go seek and or you're it and not being able to control the impulse to do said behavior. Impulse control was something we struggled with. And with that struggle came a whole new ball of wax because Edward, that would be my oldest, was on his medication for his ADHD as well as an impulse medication. And we did see some relief in some of the things he was going through. Some of the hyperactivity came down a bit. Some of the impulses stopped. But it was a struggle, and it still is. If you struggle with ADHD, let me know in the comments. Tell me about your struggles. I would love to learn more. I'm just a mom, aunt, and wife of people who happen to have ADHD. And if you are struggling with OCD, also feel free to comment or share your story in the comments. I would be glad to read them and give any advice or little pick me up of the day to those that want to reach out. If you like my content, please feel free to like, share, and even subscribe. I love helping people. I love being there for people. And as the things that you're seeing on your screen, you are not alone. I'm there for you, even though I don't know you. Self-care isn't selfish because if we don't take care of ourselves, someday no one will. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for understanding. Now that you do know a little bit more from this mom's perspective, this is the Burnt Out Mama, and I'm going to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.